doing, everybody? Welcome to our workshop, Hope Building and Anxiety Reduction Workshop. My name is Pastor Adam Klekowski, and I'm just excited to be with you all tonight, wherever you might find yourself. Hi, Dad, and your golf friends. I know you invited them all. Hope you were able to be here with us. But yeah, my name is Adam Klekowski. I'm one of the pastors here on staff, and I've been serving with Flood Church since 2003, so been here a while. And my current role, I'm our executive pastor, and just excited to lead us through and host this workshop tonight with my dear friend Wanda Brothers. And so, if there's one thing I could say about the past few weeks, it's that all of us have been adjusting. We've been going through a lot of adjustments every day, every moment, adjusting from one thing of reality that was whatever was before this to this new reality. And so for me personally, that's been adjusting from one space where I would come and I'd go to work, and now I'm stuck at home being a homeschool parent. Never done that before. Also as a principal, PE teacher, coach, art teacher. Me and my wife, we're doing it all for the kids right now, as well as we get to work from home. I know many of you are experiencing that now. So my role, I get to help lead and lead our staff and our church, and get to service in that way, helping to keep the priorities of the church in front of us, but now doing it in an entirely new way that I've never done it before. As well as I have a brand new office mate. She's really lovely and she's really great, but she can also be a bit cranky sometimes. She's not the easiest office mate to have, and I've been told I might not be the easiest office mate to have. That is my wife, who is also working from home, and so we're juggling, we're adjusting, and I know you out there are adjusting to a lot of new realities. And just yesterday, we were experiencing some beautiful moments, some of the best moments we've had as a family, and some of the maybe not so beautiful moments, maybe some of the worst moments we've had as a family. Our 11 a.m. worship gathering was going on, so I was in the backyard joining the worship and just helping serve our church during that time, while Corey was inside with our 3 kids and helping get lunch ready and helping get things going in the house. And so once church ended, I came inside the house, and it felt like a World War III war zone had just erupted in the household, because all 3 kids were screaming and crying at one another. My wife was a puddle of tears in the kitchen, and there was an entire spilled smoothie across the entire dining table just to add to the fun. And so it was at that moment we realized quickly, okay, kids need to get out of the house. And so they quickly got out, and I kind of tiptoed around my wife, hoping I wouldn't make things any worse. But we realized in that moment there was a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, and a lot going on, a lot of tension. And now I don't know about you, but I know in my life there's been a lot of stress, a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety. And so as I've sat with that and our church has sat with that, we feel like there's an important invitation and opportunity for us to learn how to be more settled, to learn how to be more present, to learn how to be more loving amidst all this stress and chaos that's going on right now. Jesus says in Matthew, he says, "Do not worry. Let tomorrow worry about itself." And when I look at the person of Jesus, I see someone that is not anxious, who's not worried, not stressed. He's present. He's not oblivious to the pain of the world. He's not oblivious to the stress in the world. But he's present in it. He's with it. And so I invited my friend, Wanda Brothers. She's been a floodster for many, many years. She served on our prayer team. She's actually gone with our church to Uganda to serve and support children over in Uganda. She also happens to be my personal therapist. So I invited her here to share some of her wisdom, some of her knowledge with us, so we can learn how to be settled, how to be present, and how to wrestle through some of the anxieties and stresses we might be experiencing in our day-to-day lives right now. So in a moment, I'm going to invite her up, but I just want to pray for us, and then we'll get started. So Father, I just thank you. I thank you for these experiences we get to have with you. And so, God, as we get settled into the evening, maybe some of us are putting kids to bed, maybe some of us are just getting settled and present, We invite you, Jesus, to be present with us. We want to be present with you. God, would you speak to us in and through this time? It's in your name we pray. Amen. And so as Wanda comes up, just want to let you know a little bit about this workshop. For about the next hour or so, she's going to be sharing different tools and practices, exercises with us.
Social distance.
In a social distance way. And then at the end of the workshop, there's going to be an opportunity to do a live Q&A. And so if you have questions about anything you've heard tonight or just something you might be dealing with, we would love to answer those. We're going to be doing a live Q&A at the end of this workshop. And all you need to do, if you're on YouTube, just go to the chat and ask your questions, and we will be there after the chat. So without further ado, here is Wanda Brothers.
Thank you so much, Pastor Adam. Talk about high anxiety. You just, confidentiality, it just scared me. But I'm going to be okay. Hello, Flood family. I'm so honored and delighted to just provide a little bit of support tonight to our bodies and nervous systems. I've spent the last 15 years learning and teaching therapists all over the world tools and things to help calm down anxiety, get stress hormones out, and regulate the nervous system. So I'm hoping that I'm going to teach you some simple tools tonight, just a little bit of information that will make a big difference. It's not going to make COVID-19 go away, and it's not going to bring back up our 401ks anytime soon. But if we can live in a body that's not swallowed by fear, which is what our culture tells us. Fear is everywhere in the air. The news is trying to scare us. If any of you know J.R. Mahan, who's recently moved to Ohio, he used to be in the network news, and he told some of us a while ago that the job of the news is to scare the living pee out of you. That's what they're supposed to do. So we need to balance that out. But it's hard to not be afraid in times of fear. But we're going to learn some things tonight that I hope will help balance out the fear with more hope, more grounded sense of God's presence, and a more sense of body safety. So for the 30,000-foot view, for those of you who like to know where we're going, we're going to spend just a little time talking about God channel. We're going to spend a little time talking about fear, despair channel. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our bodies and our autonomic nervous systems and our stress hormones and how that mediates whether we're going to be able to listen to God's words and comfort or whether we're going to listen to the fear and despair. So that's where we're going the next hour. So I think the slide is right here, Psalms 46:1. Our God is our refuge and a very present help in time of trouble. For some of us, that might feel wonderful. For others of us, it might just be words, because when we're really anxious, we have a very challenging time feeling God's presence. That's a biological reality, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm just going to invite us to do a little exercise right now. And by the way, the other thing I'm going to try to do tonight is intersperse the teaching with lots of simple, short little tools that have been shown with research, and I've used them on hundreds of my clients, used them myself, that actually help you go from feeling freaked out to feeling much more calm and grounded. And Pastor Adam has been willing to be my man of white, so he's going to demonstrate when we do an exercise. But the first one, I don't need a demonstration, but we're just going to do this together. And what I'm going to invite you to do whenever you do the exercises is I'm going to try to invite you to really notice your body. In fact, take a moment to just notice your body right now. Are your shoulders up by your ears? Is your back muscles tight and tense? Are you breathing shallowly, or are you relaxed in a chair? Probably that depends if you have children running around or not. But just take a moment and just notice your body, because our bodies are talking to us all the time, but most of us are only paying attention to our racing, worrying mind, and we don't really pay much attention. So as you do these exercises, I'm going to invite you, especially when you're done one, to take a moment to notice if your body feels a little better. And better would be a little less tense, shoulders dropping, breath deeper. Your mind will be a little less busy. Like, that's the way we know biologically and physiologically that we're moving out of the fight, flight, or freeze, as Pastor Matt was so beautifully talking about Sunday, more back into the parasympathetic calm and connect, rest, and digest. So the first little exercise is just an imaginative one to do in your mind. It's a memory exercise. And I'm going to invite you to just take a moment and go back in your Rolodex of your memory for the last time that God showed himself strong in your life. Maybe it was a miracle. Maybe it was a special verse when you needed it. Maybe it was a love from a friend, a prayer request that was answered. But I'm just going to invite you to go back in your memory to a time when God was very present help in your trouble. Hopefully it was yesterday or this week, but if it was a month ago, 2 months ago, that's okay. Just take yourself back to that memory. Yeah. And as you do that, just take a moment to notice what it feels like to really make yourself aware and open to God's presence in this moment. We know God's with us all the time, and yet we sometimes aren't with ourselves. And so it's hard to feel God's presence because we are with, the future in our minds, or we're with our racing thoughts, and we're not necessarily there with God. So, by the way, that's a great little exercise you can do anytime you want if you're feeling the stress rising, to take it's like a 2-minute God memory break and just feel that relief of how God met you in your trouble. As Adam said, Jesus says, do not worry. But Jesus also said, in this world you will have trouble, but fear not, for I have overcome the world. And so we have trouble right now. I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't have any fear at all. This is a scary virus. And we don't know what's coming. And the way our human minds are wired is that we like certainty. Our brains like to know what's coming. Frankly, we're just learning how to live like half of our brothers and sisters in most of the world live all the time. Our brothers and sisters in Africa, for instance, they don't sometimes know where their next meal is coming from. They don't know when the rebels are coming back. They don't know. And so they trust in God explicitly all the time. So we have been, whether you call it lucky or unlucky, enough to have a sense of control and certainty over the last, 10, 20 years, especially with technology. And now we're actually having to live like everyone else because we don't know what's coming, for sure. But what we do know is that God is our present help in time of trouble, and that our leaders are doing their best to help us do practices which allow us to stay safe as possible and to keep as few cases developing as there can be. But Jesus did tell us there would be some trouble, and there is trouble. But what I hope that we learn tonight is, how do we shift the focus out of the grip of fear and back into the sense of God's power and support and provision? So we're going to do another little exercise. Again, I don't need Adam yet. I think there's a slide for this: hope, fear, hope. One of the things we really need to do with fear is we need to change the radio station. If I'm only watching the news hour after hour a day, I am going to be terrified because that's their job. So it's not that we don't want to know what's going on, but one of my neighbors was a newsman for 45 years, and he said, here's what I want to tell you. Watch like maybe 10 minutes a day during the day, not at night, and that's it. Do not immerse yourself in the news. This is a person who made his living as a newspaper reporter. So we have to change the channels. What we have to do is we have to bring in other content. So this is a great exercise. So I'm going to invite you, if you have a partner or a spouse or a child, if your children are older and watching, pair up in 2s or 3s. And I'm just going to pause a moment and let you do this yourself. But I'm going to invite you to share with each other briefly one hope that you have for yourself. And then you can also share a fear. And then I'm going to invite you to also then bracket it with another hope that you have perhaps for your family or for flood or for the world. So hope for self, one fear, and then back hope for more of the community. So I'm going to give you like 2 minutes, and I'm going to invite you to do that in your living rooms. All right. Hopefully you're finished. But if not, again, these are exercises that I'm hoping they're simple and easy that you'll do every day. It's a great idea to share a hope we have every day and a fear. Hope and fear, or high anxiety / fear and hope, are sort of two opposite train tracks, right? Worry and fear say, oh my gosh, the future. We're negative futurizing. And unfortunately, when we do that, we're going to the future without God's presence. Because God's presence is right here now. God is here now. God is not in my imagined fearful future. Now, God will be in my future, but when I imagine the future, God's not there, God's here. And so then I feel most of the time, everybody that I know, when there's danger or uncertainty in the environment, their thought for the future usually is a negative, fearful one. Hopefully, maybe you're not like that. Maybe you're a little more positive or optimistic, but a lot of people go to the negative. Whereas hope is, I've heard it called faith on tiptoes, right? I'm looking for where God's going to be, not only now, but also in the future. So I'm going to invite you, again, each day, bring in hope. You can certainly acknowledge your fears. They're legitimate. It's legitimate to feel fear when there's uncertainty and some danger. But if you can keep bracketing it with hope, fear won't have quite so much of a power on you. And then I'm going to also invite you briefly notice your body, how it feels to have shared some hope, as well as honestly sharing a fear with someone you love. All right, so we're going to go to the next section. We're going to talk a little bit about fear. Gavin de Becker wrote a phenomenal book about, 20 years ago now, called The Gift of Fear. It's an older book, but it's still very relevant. And he basically tells biologically what fear is for. And fear is a very good thing if we're in danger. When we were hunter-gatherers, in the Bible days, they were, hunter-gatherers for the most part, right? There was a lot more danger all the time. Marauding, Amorites and wild animals. And so they were kind of having to deal with safety or danger, like going back and forth all the time. And so fear turns on my stress hormones. If I see a tiger chasing me, it turns on all my stress hormones, my adrenaline, my cortisol goes up, and my norepinephrine goes up in my brain. That gives me focus, that gives me intensity, that gives me extra energy, that gives me the ability to run like heck away from that tiger. So fear, actually, when there is danger, gives us, hopefully will take us to safety. So fear is a gift, and God gave it to us, and sometimes it's needed. The challenge with our humanness and in our unfortunately, our very busy minds is that we tend to project danger when we're actually currently safe. So when we're sheltering in our homes, we're pretty much safe. Unfortunately, though, we tend to think about, well, what about next month when we go out? Or what about my 401k? Or what about when I go to the grocery store? And so we bring in the feelings and the stress hormones of danger often by just worrying or thinking fearfully about something in the future. And so fear is a good thing when we're in actual danger, but it's not so helpful when we're not, because a body full of stress hormones is like someone all dressed up or nowhere to go. It's like all those stress hormones just are swirling through our system. And then what happens is, we have digestive issues, or we overeat, or we overdrink, or we over Netflix, or, we watch porn, or we do those things that we don't want to do. We know God doesn't want us to do. But when we get really, really triggered, most of us grab something to try to feel a little better or to numb from some of those high sensations. So it is normal to fear when there's danger, but what we're trying to do with the workshop tonight is really talk about how to live in the present with what is now, and trusting that if there is some danger, God will take care of us or help us in that danger. Here's another thing I think is helpful that I've seen. I've been a trauma therapist now for almost 20 years. I have my own early trauma of childhood, and then I've had cancer 3 times now, major surgery at 18. So I've known a lot of fear, and I tend to go one way than the other, but the 2 ways most humans deal with fear, and neither of them are very beneficial. The first one is I just let it swallow me. I just dive into the trauma vortex. I worry, I think about it, I call friends and I tell them how scared I am, and I get more and more and more scared, and sometimes I have a breakdown. So that's one of the ways that some people deal with fear. The other way is sort of the opposite, and I used to use this one. Stay busy, distract myself, tell myself I'm not afraid, push it away, pretend it's not there. Unfortunately, I may feel like it's not there, but my body is still having a bath of stress hormones, which is probably why until I really learned to deal with this, I've had cancer so many times. So when we have a lot of stress hormones, but we're pretending not to be afraid, it's not helping us. We might feel a little better, but we're still having the negative impact on our nervous system. And by the way, stress, intense anger, intense stress, intense fear, all of those things deplete the heck out of our immune system. So just for our immune system to be strong and robust, we want to try to practice some of these tools and really learn how to live as grounded and as relaxed as we possibly can. There's a third way to handle fear, which is the way I see Jesus handling fear in the garden. First of all, asking for support and making sure not only did he request it, he made sure they came along with him. Even if they slept a little bit, he still had the sense that his friends were close to him in his pain. Then I think Pastor Matt actually shared this similar, but of someone else, but he vocalized his upset. He vocalized he didn't want to do this. He vocalized how he felt to someone who he trusted and who loved him. He honestly was honest about how he felt. And then he surrendered. He surrendered the outcome. I'm guessing since he was also human, God and human, he was probably pretty afraid, even though he surrendered the outcome to God. Nobody wants, spikes in their hands and feet and to be made fun of. And so I'm guessing he still probably had some of the fear, but he surrendered the outcome to God and then was able to go through whatever he had to go through, trusting in the goodness of his Father God. So those are some of the ways that the three ways that I see people can deal with fear. And the third one seems to be the only way that allows us to actually navigate. Fear is kind of like a wave, right? So if I connect with it, notice it, I call it the 2 E's of metabolizing a big emotion. I experience it, I acknowledge, whenever I feel afraid, which I do sometimes, put my hand on my stomach and my heart and I say, God, I'm really scared right now, I need you. I acknowledge that I'm afraid. I tell God that I'm afraid. And then sometimes I express it. It might be words. I might do art. I might go for a run. But if we can experience our emotion and then express it somehow, that somehow helps metabolize it a little bit, and so there's not quite so much of it to deal with in our bodies. So fear and trust are kind of like two different train tracks, right? Like if a train is on one track, it can't jump another track unless there's another track built, and then the engineer actually has to do something to sort of jump the train. And so that's one of the struggles I think a lot of us have, is that we do trust God. We love God. I see floods stepping up. I've loved the messages. I've loved all the things that we're doing with the community. I think it's beautiful. But we're still human beings and we still feel fear. But we have trust, and so sometimes it depends on the day, and it certainly depends on where we are in our nervous system, whether we're on the train track of fear in the moment, letting fear sort of drive us, or whether we pull that lever and make that switch to be on the train track of trust. So let's just we'll do another exercise. I'll need my manna white in a moment, but we're going to do one without Pastor Adam, and then we're going to do Pastor Adam after this first one. So I'm just going to, again, invite you in your homes to check inside your body right now in this moment. And this you'll do yourself rather than with pairs. Just do it individually. Just going to invite you to check in with yourself and with God. How are you handling this season? How are you handling the fear that must come up some here or there when we watch the stock market, if we watch the news? There's no possible way that we're not going to feel fear here or there. But just take a moment and notice. How are you handling it? Are you able to take it to God? Are you able to acknowledge it? Or is it just easier to sort of pretend it's not there? Also, when you think about fear, notice your body in fear mode. Is it braced, tense, cold, or jittery? Now bring back to the memory the time that you did a few minutes ago where God really saved you and showed up. And take a good minute to be with that memory to sort of help balance out connecting with fear. So just take a moment. We're going to the other train track right now. We're going back to the trust track. I just invite you again, as you really remember how God showed up. And just again, notice how that shifts your body. Our body is responding to our environment, our worry, our messages all the time. So one of the things that I do, and Adam, Pastor Adam will have it at the screen at the end. I think he'll tell you a little bit more. But I have a free website with educational resources. to just really try to help people decrease the amount of anxiety and stress that's in our lives. This was even before the virus showed up. But I hope that you can learn some things. So we're going to do some of the tools and exercises that is on that website here tonight. So I'm going to have my man of white, Pastor Adam, come up. I'm going to make sure we're social distancing here. Are you okay? Actually, I'm going to have you the body scan, so maybe get in a chair so you're comfortable. So I'm going to encourage you, Flood family, when we do these exercises, when Pastor Adam demonstrates, I'm going to invite you to please do them with us. If you do them here in the context of the group, it'll be a little easier to remember to do them on your own at home. There's no guarantees with human behavior, but from being a trauma therapist, doing these myself for years and helping probably hundreds and hundreds of people by now, these work. So I'm going to just invite you to do it along with myself and Pastor Adam.
And I would just say, I'm being your guinea pig right now. It can feel funny to do these types of things, especially if you're sitting at home on a couch or you just have someone play along. We're all going to play along. I'm playing along. This is a bit odd, but we're going to do it. So I just want to encourage you to sit, get comfortable, follow along.
Awesome. So what we're going to do, this one's called a body scan. Some of you may have already done this in many other places, but we're going to do this, and then I'm going to add at the end some autogenic suggestions. So we're not doing hypnosis, not doing anything woo-woo, but when we worry, we're actually autogenically suggesting to be scared. So we're going to do some positive autogenic suggestions. So I'll do the body scan with Pastor Adam, and then I will say some phrases. For instance, my body is calm and relaxed. And then Pastor Adam, or in you at home, will repeat, my body is calm and relaxed. We're all going to
do this, people.
Yes, that's right, because Pastor Adam doesn't want to do it by himself. No. All right. So we're going to do a body scan. I'm going to do it as well standing up. So I'm just going to invite you at home to get as comfortable as you can on the sofa or the chair or the floor. Get on the floor if you want. That's even better. And all the body scan tries to do is drop us out of the busy racing mind, the sort of the up at the top of the tree where the monkey mind jumps from banana to banana. And we're going to try to drop into our trunk. The Bible says that the body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. It does not say mind, and it does not say spirit. It says the body is the temple. So there's something very important about our bodies as a way to meet God. So I'm just going to invite you to just take a moment, and we're going to just check in with our body, almost as if we're touching, not with our fingers, but with the inside of our attention. I think of my attention as like a flashlight. So take your attention, and I'm going to invite you to take a moment along with Pastor Adam and notice your feet. Just notice if they're warm or cool. Notice if they're braced or loose. If they feel filled with life or kind of numb and dead. And notice if the left feels the same as the right. And then take a nice easy breath in, and then I'm going to invite us to go up and notice our legs. So noticing our legs, noticing first our muscles, hamstrings, quadriceps, calves, the ligaments, the knee joints, the ankle joints, the hip joints. And I'm just going to invite you to just notice your legs. Visit a new place. A lot of us live in the penthouse or our attic in our bodies and our minds. So visit a new part of your mansion. Go and notice your legs. Are they grounded and warm? Are they tight and jittery? Do they feel similar left and right? And then take another nice easy breath, and then we're going to take a moment to notice our lower torso. So starting with our backsides on the chair. Thank God for butts, right? It'd be hard to sit without them. So just take a moment to notice your backside on the chair or the ground. Noticing your low belly in the front. Noticing your low back. A lot of us have low back pain when we're stressed or angry or tense. But we're just noticing with curiosity, and we're inviting also God's presence and comfort to permeate our bodies as we scan them, as we connect with them, as we notice them. Just noticing, are there sensations in your lower torso? Do you feel at home in there? Or does it feel a little bit like Adam's house that he described on Sunday, a little bit of chaos? And again, it doesn't matter whatever you notice, you're just noticing. And we're just being with what is here, people. Jesus said the truth will set us free. So we're just being with what the truth is, without shame, without pressure to change it. Then we're going to take a breath and we're going to notice our upper torso, paying special attention for a moment to our diaphragm, this little area right here, sort of between our lower belly and our lower chest. The diaphragm tends to get really cramped. It's like a bellows system. And when we've been stressed for a while, we tend to just barely sip air, and that diaphragm can really knot up. And so I'm just going to invite you, again, with just kindness. You can even put your hand on it if you want. Just notice the front of your chest, your diaphragm. As you breathe in, notice your lungs. Be grateful for your healthy, happy lungs. Notice if they feel flexible, like silken balloons, or if they feel a little rigid and a little stiff and cranky. And again, just being with what is. Then noticing your upper back, your thoracic spine, your shoulder blades, your shoulders. And again, just noticing what is happening in your body with just compassion and kindness. Then another easy breath in, and we're going to notice our hands and arms, starting with our fingers, noticing your fingers, your palms, the back of your hands, noticing your arms. Noticing, are you more aware of your non-dominant arm or your dominant arm? I'm a lefty, and I feel my left arm much more than my right arm. You feel your biceps, your triceps, your forearm muscles. Again, just noticing that you have arms. Thank God you have arms. It's hard to brush your teeth without arms. I had a friend who recently fell and broke both of her arms. What a horrible, horrible thing. She's so grateful for her working arms now. And then noticing our neck and shoulder, the schneck area. A lot of us are carrying sometimes the weight of the world, especially if we have families or we have pressure to provide, or some of us are losing jobs. Like, this is a hard time. And so sometimes we feel the weight of the world on our shoulders. And so even as we're feeling and noticing our shoulders, I invite you to remember Matthew 11:28, Jesus saying, "Take my yoke upon you. My burden is easy, my burden is light." Even in this hard time, God wants to give us a light burden. So just invite you to just notice your neck and shoulders. Maybe even wiggling your neck just a little bit, inviting your shoulders to drop. As my yoga teacher used to say, don't wear your shoulders like your earrings. Let them drop down your back. And then last but not least, our beautiful heads, faces, and brains. We hold a lot of tension in our jaws and our faces. When we're stressed out, we often have a really tight face. We sometimes look angry or unapproachable. But that's just biology. We'll talk a little bit about it in a moment. It's just the vagus nerve. But what we want to do is we want to connect with our faces again and just notice. Invite our jaws to maybe relax a little bit. Maybe wiggle your jaw a little bit. Feel your nose. Feel your eyes and your eye sockets. Feel your ears. Feel your teeth, your tongue, your cheekbones. And then try to just notice your brain. It's hard to kind of feel, but it's in there, that 3-pound organ that is very helpful to staying alive. Just take a moment to notice your brain. And then I'm going to invite you just briefly to notice your whole body. And again, just take a moment to notice. Do you feel 5% better than when we started? 10%, 50%, 70%? Just notice what areas are a little bit looser, a little bit warmer. And we're going to do just a few autogenic suggestions. So again, I'll say a phrase and then I'm going to invite you to repeat it out loud if you can. We know from the Bible that words have power. And so when we say things out loud, they feel more true to our bodies than when we say them in their heads. So, my body is calm and relaxed. Go ahead, Pastor. Yeah, you're doing it, Pastor Adam.
My body is calm and relaxed.
My immune system is robust and strong.
My immune system is robust and strong.
My arms and legs are strong but calm.
My arms and legs are strong but calm.
I am aware that this is a hard time, but I feel the power and the peace of God that will be with me no matter what.
I'm aware that this is a hard time, yet I'm aware that God is with me and his peace is with me at all times.
Yes, that's right. All right. Thank you, Pastor Adam. That was awesome. So that's what we call a body scan with autogenic suggestions. Just going to get a couple props here. So that was a little bit about God, a little bit about fear, and now we're going to talk a little bit more about the body. So it's really, really important if we can just understand a little bit about how our body works. Sometimes it makes a little bit more sense of why we sometimes feel like we lose the plot. Like we just what happened? Like I was fine and then all of a sudden I just lost it. And so I'm going to just teach you a little bit of some of the things that I have learned over the last 15 years that have revolutionized my life, my therapy practice, and the lives of my clients and my friends. So I encourage you to try to make this as interesting and as non-academic as possible, but I think it's really important and helpful. So hopefully it's late at night, but you can focus on this a little bit. So this right here is a Hoberman spear, but it's a great visual demonstration of, get that later, what we call the autonomic nervous system. So we tend to think that our brain, right? We have this big 3-pound organ that we used to think ran everything. But as we've learned from the last 20 years of research, our brain is less of a starter and more of an end organ. The body and the nervous system actually run pretty much most of our lives, a lot of our behaviors and our attitudes. And the autonomic nervous system is called that because it is automatic. It's autonomic. And so it's not conscious. It's not controlled by my mind. So for instance, you cannot make yourself digest food. You cannot stop breathing. You cannot stop your heart from beating. You have no control over the main things that keep you alive because they're automatically and autonomically regulated by the autonomic nervous system. So enough of autonomic. We'll call it the ANS. So this is just a demonstration. So it has two main branches. The first branch is called the sympathetic activation or mobilization system. So we need this for life. We need energy. We need to get up, or go to our desks now instead of going to our jobs. We go to our desk at home. But we need more energy when we wake up. So when we wake up, the nervous system automatically turns on the sympathetic, and we have a little bit more blood pressure, a little bit more heart rate, and the body just naturally prepares us for action and mobilization. Then God's balancing system is the parasympathetic, which is we call the calm and connect or the rest and digest. So in this place, this is where the body digests food. This is where we deeply and intimately connect with people we love. We can connect here doing things, but the deep intimacy happens when we're in the parasympathetic, settled, calm, and relaxed because we're receptive to the connections to them. So a healthy nervous system goes up and down all the time, all day long. If you notice, I'm doing the middle ranges. I am not doing this, and I'm not doing this. Unfortunately, though, the nervous system can do or this. So what tends to happen, especially in times of uncertainty or danger, is that the nervous system sort of gets stuck on the sympathetic branch, so sympathetic activation. Pastor Matt talked about that on Sunday, about the fight, flight, or freeze. So we kind of get in this way of going, doing, being, and the longer we stay there, the higher we get, and then we get into fight or flight energy. And even if we're not actively realizing that we're in fight or flight, the people that we live with probably do, because we're probably a little crankier, a little snappier, or we're jittery. So what happens is a lot of us, unfortunately, because of what's going on, are living in what we call sympathetic dominance. So we're just caught out here. And the reason that we're in sympathetic dominance, again, is back to what I talked about a little bit ago, stress hormones, right? So stress hormones, when I'm here in mid-ranges, healthy activation, get up, get my kids ready, etc. That's not stress hormones because I don't need them. And stress hormones are only for danger. But when I start getting way up, then my body starts secreting stress hormones. It's not a conscious choice. It's a biological imperative. So what happens is I get stuck out here, and then I'm in, and then the racing mind is really hard to get away from. We're actually sometimes even drawn to the news because sometimes when we're out here, we get what we call caught in the trauma vortex. Because the vortex is like quicksand, it pulls you down. So when we're in sympathetic, we're looking for danger, and then it's like danger is almost like pulls us. And then what tends to happen is if we live here for too long, our, again, autonomic nervous system will drop us into the opposite, which is sort of a collapse freeze. So as Pastor Matt said, there's fight or flight, which is out here, but then there's freeze. And unfortunately, freeze is like helpless victim. Fight or flight is often I can do something, but freeze is what we do when we can't get away, when we can't fight, when we can't flee. We just sort of collapse under it. Freeze often looks like depression. It feels like very little energy. A lot of clients will come to me and they'll tell me what's going on. And when I give them this little demo, they'll go, oh, that's my life. It can be a relief to know, like, and by the way, sometimes we are depressed too, but it really sort of looks a lot like depression. And so, but unfortunately what it is it's a lot of energy sort of collapse. So it's still energy, but we don't feel it. So if sympathetic is the life's gas pedal, parasympathetic is the brake. So this is like gas pedal, gas pedal, gas pedal, brake pedal as well. So what's happening in this time is a lot of us are kind of caught in sympathetic dominance or freeze. And again, that's part of having a time of uncertainty and fear, is because that's what the nervous system does. It's supposed to do that. And so what we're trying to do tonight is we're trying to just teach some simple tools and some things that help remind the nervous system, like, oh, we don't have to stay up here. We can actually go back to the middle. The other thing I like to share, this is a little kid's puzzle of the brain. Hopefully you can see this. There's many parts to the brain, but for what we're sharing, the three main parts are the brain stem, which is all automatic processes. Then it's the limbic system, which is more of the emotional brain, things connected to attachment, emotions, movement, limbs, limbic, and then the lovely neocortex, planning, rational, logic, language, etc. What happens when we're in sympathetic dominance is that we lose a lot of access to our neocortex. So we're having trouble slowing down. We're having trouble focusing. We can't remember very well. We can't plan as well as we would if we were calm and grounded. So that's another reason why it's so important to get out of sympathetic dominance, to get out of the stress hormones, to get your body back, unless you're in danger, but if you're not in danger, to get back to that middle realm, whereas we feel God's peace and we feel safety, because then we have access to our full neocortex. By the way, fun side note that you might already know, but this part of the brain doesn't fully develop till 25 or 26, which is why sometimes teenagers and young kids don't always make the best choices, because their rational brain is still in the process of being developed. And sometimes when we're really stressed out, we don't make good choices either. So that's just a little bit about the nervous system. And so what we're trying to do, again, with this workshop, but also with flood groups, with the connection, with the church services, with the volunteer opportunities, we're trying to stay connected and provide support so that gives the ability for that nervous system to go, oh, okay, I don't have to be in stress mode. I can go back to safety and relaxation, at least in this moment, right? So again, the body's responding at all times to our environment. So what we're doing, thinking, saying, who we're spending time with, they're all impacting whether we're out here or whether we're back in the middle. So I would love to try another couple exercises with my wonderful man of white, Pastor Adam. So I'll have him come up. So this one's going to be really weird, everybody. So I'm just going to invite you to try to go with this. Pastor Adam is very gracious you don't have to sit for this one. And it's a sound. It's going to sound really weird, but how many of you have had trouble getting ketchup out of the ketchup bottle, right? What do? You karate chop the top of the bottle. So what you're doing is you're vibrating, because vibration unsticks things. So this sound, it's called the VU sound, has been studied. It's been researched. It directly connects with the vagus nerve and helps calm down. So even though it sounds really weird, almost everybody that does it will say they feel a little better or a lot better afterwards. So I will do it with Pastor Adam. So we're going to do this together.
And everybody out there, we want to hear you.
Yes.
We can't hear you, but we want to hear you.
Yes, we want
doing it.
So everybody.
Shake it off.
Yeah, that's right. Here we go. So it's a VU sound. So think V, not W. So V. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to, like a foghorn, you're trying to like vibrate, because the vagus nerve goes from our guts up through our heart, lungs, throat, which is why when we're really upset, we sometimes have trouble vocalizing, through our facial nerves into our brain. So we're trying to vibrate that whole thing. So when you're VUing, try to really vibrate. So what I'm going to do is
And
we're
vooing.
we're
Here we
vooing.
go, people.
So I promise this is not an ungodly thing. Many of my clients have had great relief from this. So we're gonna do just 2 rounds. So, and I will do it too. So we're gonna do VU, and part of the reason this is so helpful is because it helps empty your lungs of carbon dioxide, because when we're just sipping air, our carbon dioxide builds up, and then we have high symptoms of anxiety because the blood levels are off. So our bodies are like, we really are fearfully and wonderfully made, people. God is just amazing. So the VU sound actually helps reset your breath. So we're going to do just 2 rounds, and then we're going to ask to see if you notice anything different at home. Okay? So I'm going to go. So breathe in, go. All the way out. Breathe in. And then take a moment, besides feeling weird, just take a moment to just notice. Feel your chest, feel your heart, feel your face, feel your throat, and just notice. I feel probably 10% better. I don't know. How about you, Pastor Adam? Did it help?
Obviously, there's a little bit of anxiety, right? Even getting this up and going.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the first time I feel like present, like settled.
Wonderful. Oh, hear that, people? I hope you had the same experience. That's great. So yes, so again, these are simple tools, but they've been researched like crazy. They're used. We teach them. Like I said, I teach therapists in other countries. We teach these all around the world to thousands of people, and so we're giving them to you from God in your living room. So we're going to do another simple one. Get the chair, if you will. We're going to do the got to settle. This is a very simple one. You know, the got milk. Got milk. Well, this is got in order to settle down. So it's GOT. So again, what we're trying to do a lot is when we're really worried or sympathetic dominance, we're almost always racing mind because we feel like we're doing something with the energy. So with got to settle, again, we're trying to drop down into where the Holy Spirit is waiting to say, I got you, people. So I'm just going to invite Pastor Adam, as he demonstrates. The first G is for grounding. So take a moment, and at home, and maybe like push your feet into the ground or the chair. Grounding is really part of the ground, right? So push your feet into the chair. Kind of really feel your legs, the strength of your legs. Feel how your hips sit on your legs. Feel how your torso sits on your hips. Feel how your head sits on your torso. So just take a moment to kind of ground yourself in this moment, not tomorrow, not next month, right now, in your safe living room with your family. Just let yourself really ground and be here now, where God is with us. Great. And then O stands for orient, just a fancy word for start with either side, one side behind your back, and then just slowly turning your head and neck and eyes. Just scan 360 degrees to the other side. And you're not trying to look for anything particular, you're just taking in your environment. But because of the vagus nerve and because of the movement, what we're actually doing is we're actually telling the amygdala, which I didn't have time to go into, but it's the smoke detector of the brain. We're telling the amygdala, in this moment, there's no gunfire, there's no poison, there's no smoke, there's no virus as far as we know, and we're social distancing, so we're safe. So we're actually giving the amygdala information to stand down, because the amygdala is a big part of stress hormones. So G, ground, O, orient, and then T, Pastor Adam is already doing it, some form of self-touch. Touch was our first language we spoke. Touch is very, very grounding. So some people it's touching their legs, some people it's hugging, I like to rub or put my hand on my heart and my chest. And so just taking a moment to just notice as you ground yourself. Touch is a kind thing, a calm thing. And so just some form of touch. So that's got to settle, grounding, orienting, and touch. And you can do that in 30 seconds to 5 minutes, depending on how long you have. But that's another great exercise. I'm going to throw you another one, just a real brief. It's not on here. All right. Yeah, He's doing great. Isn't he doing great? Give him a hand from your living room. I'm so pleased that I have a help here. This is a simple one. I think I did it on the podcast with Pastor Scott. But this is a great one, too. Do a little sensory break. Again, when we can get out of the internal, like, and into what's actually happening, for the most part, we're mostly safe. And so it's a sensory break. So what you do is you list out loud 5 things that you can see. So anything that you see that's more pleasurable.
A rug. I see I don't know what you call your...
Hoberman spear.
That.
Okay.
Spear. I see a light. I see a camera. I see Tim in the back.
Great. And people be doing this at home. So 5 things you see. Okay, now 4 things you hear. It's a little harder, but I'll keep talking a little bit.
Hear your voice. Hear the creak of this chair. Your feet.
Okay.
Hear a humming of a computer.
Perfect. Okay. And then 3 things that you can touch from where you are.
My legs.
Okay.
Cold chair.
Okay.
And my flip-flop.
Awesome. Okay. And then 2 things that you can smell. Again, a little harder, but maybe laundry detergent.
This flip-flop.
Okay. Thank God I'm 6 feet away, right? No.
How many things?
2 things.
2 things. I guess we're going to
laundry shirt. No, the laundry, like the laundry on
laundered shirt. I'll go armpit. She'll go laundered shirt.
Okay. And then 1 thing that you taste, which that's a little harder unless you just had lunch, but yeah. So that's a little sensory break. So thank you, Man of White, Pastor Adam. You're so great. So that's another little exercise. All these are little exercises that help the nervous system come out of like back down into okay, we're gonna live to survive to fight another day. Let's see. We're getting close to the end here. So what else do we want to share? I like analogies and visuals. I'm a poet part-time for myself, but one of the things that really helps me when I'm praying and really freaked out about something is God will often give me a visual or an analogy which helps me get a concept. So what I want to share with you is if you have a device, which we all probably do, right? If you put it in airplane mode, can you access the internet? No? Okay. No. So when you have it in airplane mode, the mode it's in denies you the internet. You can have the best device ever, but if you're in that mode, you can't have the internet. It's not a problem with the internet, it's the mode. And that's what our nervous systems are like. When we get caught in sympathetic dominance and threat, it's like God is like Wi-Fi and we're in airplane mode. So we have I've never met anybody, maybe it's possible, maybe you can, but I've never met anybody who's caught in high fight or flight that can actually feel the calm, grounded presence of God in that moment. And again, that's kind of a biological thing where we're like, it's like a switch, either on or off. And so I just encourage you, again, these things are really important because you want to get your nervous system out of stress hormone airplane mode into Wi-Fi mode so that you're open and you can access God's presence through friends, through flood groups, through support. It's really, really important in this time more than ever that we can feel the goodness of our lives, the things to balance out the fear, the things we're missing, the things that we can't have right now. So even though we don't know what's coming, we don't for sure, but what we do know is the power and the presence of our God, who is a very present help in time of trouble. God's character and nature, we know that from history, thousands of years through the Bible, our own history with God. And so, I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to do a couple more exercises, and then we need to close this portion before we do the Q&A. But I'm just going to encourage you to really, now more than ever, take some time and space. We need to slow down sometimes to feel God. We need to stop. We need to be still and know that He is God. And so really having time to do that, connecting with other people who help you feel calm and grounded is very important as well. So we're going to do just a couple more exercises, and then I think we're almost at 9 o'clock. So we're going to do a couple breath exercises. If you'll come up, Pastor Adam, for the 4-7-8, but I'll do the first one. Many of you are familiar. I think Lindsay's a wonderful spiritual director. She has done this with her groups or her workshops. The breath, some kind of breath prayer. So the one I really like is breathe in, saying out loud to myself because I'm breathing, Lord Jesus, Son of David, and then as I exhale, have mercy on us. It's supposed to be me, I think, but because of everything going on, I say mercy on us. So breath prayers are great throughout the day. Number one, to pray, but number two, to get back into breathing, because calm and deep breathing are a great, quick way to decrease the sympathetic dominance. Support, breathing, those kinds of things are really helpful. So, Pastor Adam, we're going to demonstrate one more thing, and that is 4-7-8 breathing. It's hard to do this while talking, so Pastor Adam's going to demonstrate. This is another breath that's intended to help empty the carbon dioxide to balance out the blood so that you have more calm symptoms in your body. So you breathe in to the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you hold it in your lungs for the count of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you breathe out for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do one more time. 4, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Forgot to count for a moment. Thank you. So that's another great one, 4-7-8. Easy to remember, really important though. That really helps kind of reset the breath. So as we close, I think...
Got to share the crooks.
Okay.
Let's do that one.
Which? Yes, the cook's hookup. Okay.
Crooks hookup.
Can you sit again?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a slide. Yes. We'll do so this is called the cook's hookup, and it's based on Dr. Cook, who has studied how trauma and energy and things move through the body for 35 years. So he's very skilled and knowledgeable. This one almost always calms people down really quickly. So it's a slide, and if you'll do it with Pastor Adam, it'll be easier to remember later. So what you do is you put your left ankle over your right ankle, and he's on a chair, which is fine, a high chair. It's helpful if you're doing it at home to have your feet on the ground. We feel more stable when we're grounded, but that's fine. So left over right, and then the arms go out, and right over left. So the top is the opposite, and then you clasp your hands and pull it in. Perfect. And then your chin rests on your knuckles, and your arms kind of rest on your ribs. So you're really trying to kind of hold your body up with your structure so you can let those back muscles go. So really structure. And then the last part is the breath, where you breathe in through your nose and put the tip of your tongue on the soft palate up at the roof of your mouth. So breathe in deep, and then breathe out. And as you breathe out, blow as if you're whistling, blowing out a candle. So we'll do 5 breaths there. So again, hopefully you're doing this at home. Breathe in, tongue up. Blow out the candle, tongue down. 3 more. Okay, and then you can unhook and then just take a moment to notice anything different from doing that.
Yeah.
What was different?
Every time I start getting in my head, it brings me back.
Okay.
Just down into the moment.
Great. Okay. You can just stay up here because I'm just going to wrap it up since you're going to jump in. But just briefly, and Adam is going to go over next steps, but just a few things to think about. Move your body, move your body, move your body, move your body. It's huge. Sedentary ups the anxiety. It's a nervous system thing. I don't have time to go into it. You don't have to exercise if you don't like exercising. Do a dance party in your living room with your kids. Walk the dog. Stretch. Do yoga.
I know Corey at 5 o'clock each day. She's been playing this song and doing a dance routine in our backyard.
Wonderful.
So just a fun way to mark the end of a workday.
That's right. Follow Pastor Adam and Corey. And then one of the things that Pastor Matt talked about, but I think is really important, is be generous in this time. Help flood, help other people. Scarcity mentality really sets in with fear, and the more I give into scarcity mentality, the more frightened I get. So when I was afraid I wouldn't have any toilet paper because I didn't have very much, I actually it was already wrapped, so I didn't it was safe, but I have new neighbors, and so instead of bringing them food, I brought them a roll of toilet paper because I wanted to do something to say, I am not so scared of this. So generosity breaks the power of scarcity. And then the last one we'll do, and then I'll turn it to Adam. Get support. We're mammals. We need our pack. We need our tribe. So Adam and I are going to demonstrate one final exercise. It's called, it's not called anything. What we're going to do is, if you have a partner at home or a spouse or a child, I encourage you to.
And this is something you could even do over a Zoom call. Or,
Yes,
yeah.
for sure. So sit facing each other, and all we're going to do is we're just going to smile at each other for 15 seconds and notice what we feel in our body when we're done. Ready? Go. Okay, stop. Just felt such tremendous joy.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's 'cause, again, biological, right? These are biological things. When we connect facial nerves, vagus nerve, it calms us down. It brings us into more of a sense of supported safety. So practice smiling at each other. I have a lot more of these things, but we don't have time. But Adam will share ways, next steps where I can maybe help you more when we have more time. But I just appreciate you being here. I appreciate you listening. And please, please know that we are here for you at Flood. God is here for you. We are going to be okay. We're in this together. It's just a really hard time. So thank you.
So good. Please give your thumbs up or your likes or your comments to Wanda. We're so just grateful. I am personally so grateful for the gift you've been to me and to my family. And I just know so many of you, I hope, were blessed through some of those items that she shared. And so we just want to talk about a few next steps. How do you take some of these items you heard beyond this workshop? And so one, we want you to be encouraged to share 3 things you're grateful for daily. So that could be around the dinner table. That could be with a friend. Maybe it's just a gratefulness challenge, and you text 3 things each day back and forth to each other just to stay in some more positive thinking. The next is what are 2 to 3 tools from this workshop that you did that worked? Maybe there's a few that you're like, yeah, that was really weird and I didn't connect with that. But maybe there's another one that you're like, that was actually really helpful. And maybe commit to trying to do that daily for the next week and just see if you see anything change. So we want to encourage you in that. Third one is to change the radio station. And literally that means watch very little news or turn off Twitter, whatever you need to do to eliminate a lot of the noise that is out there right now and seek positive things to fill your ears and your mind with. And so we at Flood, we have a daily scripture you can sign up for, divineflood.com/scripture. That's a great way just to spend some time on God's Word. Tons of spiritual practices to just center yourselves in the things that are true and be reminded of what's true even in this time of uncertainty. Next one is to stay emotionally connected with others. And so there's a lot of creative ways out there, even if you might be distant, especially for those that might be finding themselves living alone. This is maybe an encouragement to consider creative ways to check in. We had a friend, even during this workshop, when Wanda talked about the hope, fear, hope, she texted Corey and I and just said, here's something she's hopeful for. She's also really afraid of getting this virus, and yet she's also hopeful that this will come to an end soon. And so those are great ways to reach out and connect meaningfully with others in this time. And then lastly, parents, make sure you are getting enough support. Children, I'm saying this to myself, feel stable and safe if their parents do. So the more we can take care of ourselves, that's just better for others, our neighborhoods, our roommates. So just encourage you in that. A few next steps with Wanda specifically. If you found yourself needing more support, she would love to offer that to our church family and beyond. And so we know there's people out there that are watching this that need maybe some additional support. Maybe you're experiencing higher levels of anxiety and stress, and you really want to have a disciplined time with Wanda where you can focus and work through some of those things. And so she wants to make herself available for a free weekly Zoom stabilization session. And so this would just be in a small group setting via Zoom where she'll guide you through some of those practices just to remain grounded. And so her email has been available and you can contact her for that. As well as she is welcoming anybody that wants to see her for a 30-minute session, individual or with your whole family, grounding and settling session. And those are provided on a donation basis. And so you can reach out for Wanda to learn more about that. So just wanted to let you know about those next steps. Other next steps here as a church community, we just want to encourage you to get connected and stay connected. We might be in a really weird social distance time, but that doesn't mean we have to be disconnected from one another emotionally and spiritually. And so we want to encourage you to get connected to a group. We have groups, divineflood.com/groups. Check those out. You can also share your prayer requests at prayer at diveintoflood.com. That's just a great way to express some of your needs, and we want to know what's going on out there. And then lastly, you might need to connect with a pastor. My email's on there. If you want to connect with me or any of our pastors on our staff, feel free to send me an email. She mentioned a podcast, and Pastor Scott Wildy, has a great podcast that he's created for leaders here at Flood, but really it's helpful for anybody. It's our One Another podcast, and so you can search that, and I believe the first podcast with Wanda dropped today, so you can check that one out. And then lastly, these streams, these events, these activities that we're offering come with because of your generosity. And so we just want to encourage you, if you're not giving, maybe this is an opportunity to make a gift to Flood today. And so you can do that at diveintoflood.com/give. And so that concludes kind of the formal portion of our workshop. We're now going to try something we have not done yet with these live feature. I'm going to bring Wanda back on up here. And we know a lot of you watching might have unique, specific questions. Maybe it's about your kids. Maybe it's about a specific circumstance you're working through or wrestling with, or just want some tips. We have an expert here. So this is your time to get free resourcing from Wanda. And I don't have my phone. I'm going to go grab my phone.
Okay.
You're going to ask those questions on the YouTube channel in our chat. And we'll be looking at Facebook as well. If you're on Facebook, you can ask those questions there. But if anybody has a question, and I don't know if this is going to work, Wanda, but we're going to try it out.
We're here just in case. Or comments or heckling even, as long as it's a nice heckle.
Heckling, or if you just want to see me do more weird things.
I don't like being so high. I'm higher than you here, Adam. All right.
So I'm going to start just with a personal question. I shared at the beginning of the session of just a lot of chaos in our household. We have some beautiful moments, and then there's just a lot of stress, tension that's just kind of building it up in that. Is there anything specifically you would say to those parenting children?
I feel like you can speak to that better because you're an actual parent. but it kind of goes back to what you said. If parents are taking care of themselves and getting enough support, it's really critical. Children their nervous systems are pinging off of their parents all the time. So, and also have some grace, right? Like realize that this is a difficult time, and so if we can give each other extra grace. But if the parents are getting enough support and getting enough what they need, you'll be more able to navigate and kind of deal with the chaos, making sure that, again, kids can move enough. So, whether it's dancing in the living room or, walking on I don't know if you can walk anymore, but, walking outside, biking, like doing things that are safe, but really allow, young kids especially to get some of the energy out. It's really hard being trapped in a place for days at a time. So that's what I would say.
That's been interesting when we'll see things start to get more stressed in the house, and we'll realize, Walt hasn't got to go jump on the trampoline or run for a run, and then once he gets out, he just got to get out so much energy, and then it's like, this is not as crazy anymore.
Yeah, because they have more kind of build up. We're a little more tired than they are sometimes.
I know. I'm now answering my own question, but one of the
things
I've
do.
Found helpful too is a practice that Corey and I have tried to do is on Monday nights, we kind of, for us, call that like a Sabbath night where we don't watch TV. We purposely set aside that time to just connect, and that's been a helpful time too. That's great. To just disconnect from screens and other things.
Yeah, time together. Families used to play games. We didn't used to have screens, so we actually used to connect with each other.
That's a great question. So Brad Green, hey Brad. He is saying, how many times and in what order would you do those? You gave us a lot of relaxation techniques. Is there any magic to it, or how would you encourage someone to do those?
That's a really good question. The short answer is, as Pastor Adam said, pick the ones that actually for sure work and do them. Get some kind of a consistent rhythm build up. So if two of them really work well for you, then for sure do those. If I had more time, I'd talk a little bit about the difference between exercises when you're out here, or exercises when you're here, right? So I don't have time for that per se, but I would say, generally make sure you're getting enough movement, and then doing the grounding, because movement kind of lets out some of the charge, and then the grounding exercises have a more tendency to land. So That would be my short answer. There's not necessarily a magic order, and some people, most of them work for most people, but some of them work really dynamite for people that don't work for others. And so find the ones that work and work them, right? As AA says, work the program. So work the program.
Yeah, I recently saw someone just talking for support, and they were saying, well, you know what you should do, and I'm listing, I got to be really prayerful, and I got to be journaling, and she's like, no, go for a run, and it was like, oh yeah, like I like to run. That's a good thing for me to do within reason right now, and do those things at work.
Right. Yeah. So there's tools for getting energy out, and then there's tools for calming and settling down. So notice what you need at the time.
A lot of questions are rolling in.
Good.
One says, somebody has friends. Hey, Dennis, good to see you. I think are so stressed out they refuse to believe they are. How can I approach them or help them relieve the stress or even admit it? So how do we help others that around us might be stressed?
That's a great question.
You just tell them to calm down, right?
Yeah. Do the Bob Newhart. Just stop it. That's really hard. That's what I said. That's one of the ways some people deal with fear. That used to be the only way I dealt with fear. I just pretended I didn't have it. Again, the more grounded you are when you communicate with them, the more likely they are to be able to hear you. You can try to have an honest intervention. Like, could we have a conversation? Could I share some things I've noticed? That might go over like a lead balloon, or they might be able to hear you sometimes. I think of it in terms of truth as seeds. Jesus said the truth will set you free. I've seen it happen thousands of times in my life and my work, but it sometimes doesn't happen on the first seed. Sometimes it takes like 30. So I would say, just keep being that resource for them, keep encouraging them, periodically share what you might be noticing from the outside. Like, I know you say that this is what you're experiencing, but this is what I'm experiencing when I'm with you. And if they're close enough friends, they might actually be able to hear you at some point. Or you can say, hey, guess what I learned? And then just do one of those weird tools in front of them and say, come on, just try it with me.
Yeah, that's funny that you say that. There was a time a couple days ago, and Corey and I having a stress moment, and then I'm like, let's boo. All right.
That's great.
So a couple questions about parenting and with kids. What do you think is the appropriate way to talk to kids about this and not overly scare them with what's going on out there?
Well, from a therapy perspective, because again, I'm not, you're more a parent, but I would say it somewhat depends on the age of the children. Like if they're really young, like you kind of want to protect them as best you can. But I do think, again, honesty goes a long way. So, sharing with them what's, to some extent, hopefully your children, and so you hopefully will have a sense of like what they can handle and what they can't handle. But it doesn't do them any favors if you sugarcoat everything and then something really scary happens to your family, because then they're really not prepared. So again, it's that balance, right? Sharing the reality, but bracketing with safety. This is what we're going to do. This is what God is doing. It's just try to give them a sense of hope in this, because like I said, like children are like our African brothers and sisters, like they grow up with uncertainty all the time. Like they just learn to live in it. And so but it definitely depends on the age of the children, how much you're going to share with them.
And I've learned the hard way, don't answer questions they're not asking. So like follow their lead.
Yeah.
Sometimes a really helpful one with that.
Yeah, that's great.
Just one more question around with children. How might a child show signs of anxiety that aren't very obvious? And what are ways to support your kids in this?
It's another great question. You're a student of your child, if you will, like you kind of know their baseline norm. So if they're acting abnormal, and for some kids they show anxiety very outwardly, and some kids they become more withdrawn, or they can become more snappy. And so if they're acting different than normal, that's probably a clue that things aren't going very well. A lot of kids will act out when they're stressed and anxious. And how do you support them? Do these, kids are great with these tools. Like do these tools with children. I have quite a few more. We just don't have time. But if you do any of the free Zooms or the 30-minute stabilization, I'll work with your specific situation and teach you some. but the kids, kids really respond great to these tools. And so you do it, make them fun, make them a game. These are games that are like every day we're going to do these silly things that make us feel happy or that make us feel better. And so, and some of it is the realization that we can't bubble wrap our kids. I mean, that can be really painful when I work with parents, that they just so desperately want to keep their kids from any kind of hardship. And that's admirable. But I have to say that actually doesn't develop very good character sometimes. Like hardship, we don't want hardship, but when it happens, if we teach our kids how to be with it and how to grow through it, they will be much more prepared than kids who have everything handed in their bubble wrapped, and then they get to adulthood and they just implode because they're not ready.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Jamie and Justin. Those are really
okay.
good.
Yeah,
good
great questions.
And, what I love about the idea of those exercises you taught us, you can easily do them with the kids. And
right.
You might think you're doing it for the kids, but you might actually be doing it for yourself. So there's something fun that can kind of come out of all of that.
Right.
Christy, hey Christy, good to see you or see you on here. How do we balance staying informed during a scary situation and not getting sucked into the fear cycle? So how do we balance information and the news with not getting sucked in?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it kind of goes back to what that newspaper man said is he's like, find a source that you trust and connect in if you want to know, like 10 minutes a day, like get the update, but don't go from channel to, keep diving in, listening for hours at a time. Again, the news's job is to scare the living pee out of us. That is what they try to do. That's what sells newspapers and sells advertising. And so find the source you trust and just touch in every day, get a little bit of sense of what's going on. If it's really important, it's going to, you're going to get an email, your neighborhood, your mayor is going to send it to you. And so, so that would be the only thing that I can think of to sort of balance that out.
Yeah, and Corey shared, because some people might feel like to shut off all news, that seems crazy. What I need to know.
Yeah.
Corey said there's a texting system with a county right now. If you text, and you can look this up on San Diego County, they'll text you if there is something urgent. So if there is a new change in the rules or the orders, they'll let you know.
Oh, that's
and
great.
That might be a way if you need to give yourself some distance, but to still feel like, that news will come to me if I need it.
And again, try to do it during the day. Like as you go into sleep will determine how you sleep and how well you rest, and nightmares even. Like, so if we watch something really scary right before bed, it tends to mess with our sleep cycle.
So you're saying I should be watching Tiger King right now before I go to bed.
Something that makes you laugh or smile.
It's a trip. This is a really, I think, a great question, and I think actually deals with part of your expertise. Jana asked, any tips for trauma coming up as a result of feeling confined or trapped, and the compounding emotional response?
Oh, wow. Thank you for saying that. I had so much to share, but didn't have that much time. That's what I wanted to say, is that those of us who have early trauma often have a lot harder time in these seasons because the earlier wiring, if you will, gets kind of reawakened. So I would say if you're noticing that, like if you're feeling trapped, again, definitely where it's safe, try to get out and about, go for a bike ride somewhere where, the nature doesn't have the virus, right? So, if you're feeling trapped inside your home, definitely, get out in ways that you're safe and comfortable and feel. The research suggests that when we get around trees, even if within, I think it's 30 seconds, our inflammation markers start to drop. So go somewhere with nature and breathe, so that helps with the I'm stuck inside feeling. Definitely get support. Call me up. I'll be happy to do some of the 30-minute sessions with you. But get some, or you can come and become one of my clients. It's fine. But definitely, when you have other trauma and then you have these kinds of situations, you're just bombarded, and so you need extra support for sure. However, you get that. Yeah. But thank you for sharing that. That's a great question. Some people, we're all equal in God's eyes, but we don't all start life at the start line. Some of us start way behind, and we need a little bit of extra support, and so that's really hard.
That's good. Great. Well, no, we got another one.
Love the questions.
All right. Well, we really appreciate it. I just thank you for any final word of encouragement or things that I didn't get to, but just one final thing, anything? it's okay if you don't have them.
Well, actually, we could end with the river imagery if you want.
That's a great
Okay.
idea.
Okay. So we're
This
gonna.
is a very good, just kind of mental, imaginary exercise that you can replay anything on this workshop throughout the whole week. It'll be available online after this. So if you find just some of these little exercises and you just want Wanda as your guide, you can even cut just to this. So just want to encourage you in that.
Okay.
Thank you, Wanda. Thank you, everybody.
Sure. So this is from David G. Benner. He's one of my favorite authors, and it's a visualization that he does with his spiritual directees and his congregation when he was a pastor. And it's called The River of God's Love. And so I'm just going to invite you to, we're going to just close with this. This is just a visualization exercise that helps ground and calm the nervous system. So I'm just going to invite you to just follow my voice, get yourself comfortable on a sofa or a chair, and I'm just going to talk you through it. And all you have to do is listen to the prompts and let the Holy Spirit and your spirit connect and go through this however you choose. So take a moment to take a nice deep breath in and release it. Take a moment to notice that your body is still here. You're still alive and kicking. You're still in this to win this. You're still doing fine. And then imagine that you're out hiking in nature, like somewhere that's just so pristine, untouched by tourism, and just somewhere where it's just gorgeous trees and animals and flowers and a breeze, clouds floating in the sky, the smell of pine trees in your nose. Just kind of feeling your legs as you walk, as you push off, feeling your healthy, strong body as you engage in nature as God so beautifully made this world for us to engage in and love and care for. And then as you go around a corner, you come to a bend and there's a break in the trees. And as you go through the break, you see in front of you this beautiful, crystal clear river. And it's wide and it's deep, but you can see straight to the bottom. It's never been touched. It's pristine. And it's got a gentle current that's flowing. And the Holy Spirit whispers to your spirit and says, this river is a visual representation of God's buoying, carrying, holding, cleansing, healing love. And while we don't know for sure what's coming, we do know for sure who holds us. And so just for a few moments, I'm just going to invite you to just engage inside of your imagination with the Holy Spirit, with God. And in this moment, how ready or comfortable are you to surrender this situation, your body, your life, your 401k, your kingdom? We're here to build God's kingdom, but sometimes we get confused and start building our own. So how comfortable in this moment are you to surrender to that river? Because the current is God's love that will take us where God is going to take us, not always 100% where we might go. And so sometimes surrendering to God can be a little hard or scary. And so today you might only want to stick your toe in, or you're up to your legs, or maybe you want to stand in the river but not lay down, and that's okay. You're engaging in whatever level of surrender you're comfortable with in this moment. And God is a gentle person and never pressures surrender. God does not pressure. God invites and woos. And then if you're, for some of us might be more able in this moment today, some days I can surrender, some days I can't. But in this moment, if you're more able to surrender, then I invite you to imagine like the last time you floated. Imagine that you're going to surrender your whole being, your whole future, all of you to this river. And if you are able to do that, I invite you to feel what it feels like to lay back and be held. When you're floating, the less you move, the better you float, the less effort in surrender, the better. And I just invite you to just again engage, if you're able to surrender to that level. Just feel God holding you up, God comforting you, God the Good Shepherd leading you, the current guiding you into tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. I'm just going to be quiet for another minute and then we'll close. So just you and God, just you and God, whatever level of comfort you have. And whatever level you are able to surrender, I just invite you to notice how that impacts your body, your nervous system. Just take a moment to just notice. It's the trust track. We're continually jumping from fear track to trust track. That's just normal humanity when things are uncertain and somewhat dangerous. And so we're just going to keep trying to change and get on the trust track where we can feel God's promise that I am a very present help in times of trouble. Call out and I will be there, God says. So as we close tonight, I just invite you. That's a great visualization. I used to do that every day when I first learned it. So you can do that at any time. Any of these things can just help sort of jump the train off the track. And the quicker you can catch when you start getting afraid and the quicker you do a tool, the easier it is to get off the fear track. So as we close for tonight, I just ask God to bless us all. Lord Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on us all.